Hello, my name is Ashraf Sami Hijab, which is Arabic for the most honorable headscarf. Today I'm going to be presenting some live coding, and what I've been told to tell you guys is tell you guys there's a problem and show some coding and tell you how it's done. So that's going to be the flow of the presentation. If someone could be kind enough to time me, like give me a shout out when I've used up 10 minutes, I'll continue. So today I'm going to be presenting a project called Multiplay.io, and how it works, you're going to find out what it does. It allows you to write code in real time. What that means is, in real time, you can edit the UI across as many different devices as possible. You can edit assets in real time. So the use case we're going for is creating games. So you can create free animations and apply them on running games in real time. You can change lines and lines of code, apply it in real time, and you can change the UI. It's possible. We're going to find out. Hello, my name is... Oh, I said that. This is me. It's my picture. I worked about 7 years in the games industry and 3 years in mobile R&D. Tell you about Multiplay. So, problems or opportunities. There's so many different operating systems like Windows 8. What's up? It's amazing. And Android. I mean, someone was offended that they were talking about Windows 8 for Android. I mean, this pie is getting huger and huger. And to develop for all these different platforms, you need to be learning all these different APIs. It's a challenge, it's a problem, but it's also an opportunity. You want to jump onto it. There's so many different devices. They've got different aspect ratios. They've got different resolution, different densities. And there was an awesome presentation back in 2003 by the man Steve Jobs. They got rid of the link times by the introduction of zero coding. So whenever there's a problem, when you're running some code, you've got to stop, debug it, recompile it, wait a couple of minutes for it to recompile, wait a couple of minutes for it to deploy, and run it. This takes a long time. There's more problems, update times. When you release something on the App Store, it takes X amount of time for a user to even accept the update, let alone have it approved. Design iterations. To make a game, it takes about 10,000 to 100,000 iterations between a designer and a coder before it becomes play testable, before it becomes releasable. Programming's hard, making free animations hard, setting up your own servers is hard, making games is hard. So we want to make a good solution. So we want to have one code base, instant updates, a nice drag and drop UI, and for it to be collaborative. So if I make a change, you make a change, you all make a change together. So that's enough of the problem / solution. We're going to show you a live demo of this working, how it works, and it's open source as well, so you can do wherever you want to do it as well. So on the right, unfortunately, I'm just running a MacBook Air, which isn't powerful enough to run the Android emulator and Parallels at the same time. But I'm using the iOS simulator, which is even more... people think that iOS hates instant updates. People think that iOS hates you. Whenever you push an update to the App Store, they will reject it. They want to wait 2 weeks. But with this solution, you can update it instantly. So I've got a bit of a screen. This is a game called World of Fighters. Started last month at Tides at Hackathon. And this is the UI for it on the left. And this is it running on the right. And I'm just going to make this bigger. And this, it's at the moment it's pinging a server in Dublin and coming back. But within a matter of seconds, it's actually changed the UI of a deployed app. A deployed native app. I'm going to make it a blink. A couple of seconds, it's actually going to start blinking. I can drag and drop in my own images, so I can use a different image here. And in real time, if it was on a localized server, I'm based in the UK, so that's why I picked the server in Ireland. It's still in beta, but... So right now, I'm loading up the source code of the UI. Now this is JavaScript source code. I'm going to jump into .png and let's see what happens. Now what's cool about this editor is that it runs completely off JavaScript, which means if I were to start changing lines of code, as soon as I hit save, it's actually updated the editor and it's updated the clients. So this isn't some crazy XML solution or a binary solution which you won't understand. This is actually real JavaScript, and it's changes are happening in real time. I'm going to jump. Music. I'm going to jump into an actual game to show you how immersive it can be. So this is kind of like an MMO Street Fighter kind of game. If you can see correctly. On the top we have a guy that looks nothing like Justin Bieber. On the bottom we've got a guy that looks nothing like The Rock. That's my legal disclaimer. And oh, there he is. So I'm going to jump into that class that's running this simulation. So first I'm going to challenge The Rock for a fight. He looks a bit menacing. So we got this introduction scene. And that intro went by really quickly. Just say I want to debug that intro. I can just hit save. Within a couple of seconds, it's going to reload that JavaScript, and it's just going to continually run the introduction scene, and I can tweak it. So instead of having him punch, I have him kick. And the next time he's kicked, and when I'm happy with it, I can uncomment that line of code, and it's running again. Just like that. Don't need to do anything else. Wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? Oh my god! I'll show you. Okay, whatever. So I'll show you one more thing to do with the asset editing. I'm going to jump into the actual map, and I can see that there's my buddy, the guy who's nothing like The Rock. And I'm going to make this rock thing slightly bigger. And just like that, it's gotten bigger. I'm going to change this asset to be something else, wherever this is. I'm going to move it wrong in front of him. And it's appeared. It's loading on the editor, but I've just turned it into a jet fighter. So these updates are happening in real time. Okay. I'll give you an overview of how it works if you want to write this stuff yourself from scratch. As soon as my Mac wakes up, there it is. And what it uses is a hybrid architecture. So you got a JavaScript code, and whenever you call like audio, it has a C++ proxy, which will then call the iOS version of the audio player, the Android version of the audio player, and the Windows Phone 8 version of the audio player. We're going to talk about how it handles updates and performance. Can someone give me an update for time?
8 minutes.
8 minutes? Okay, cool, we've got time. So, to do your own cross-platform multiplayer stack, does anyone know about multiplayer stuff? Okay, traditionally, to make a web-based multiplayer game, you have the common stack that's on the net. There's an open source project called Grates. It was presented in the last year's Google I/O. You have like Node.js using Socket.io. That's your stack there. Maybe you have MongoDB as your database. And then the Socket.io is just, it uses WebSockets or falls back to Flash sockets or falls back to long polling for you, and it gives you one API to do that. With that layer, you talk to the client side, and he handles the network logic. And what I mean by that is, whenever you want to move to a location, you send an update to the server. The server will then ping that message out to the other users that are connected, so they will all re-simulate that scenario. And if you want to do that in native, you have to implement the same thing with a C++ stack. Maybe you have a Java server, sockets, UDP, because they're much faster, and some C++ networking logic. So this was the original design, but it's something very, very common in this. You've got JavaScript network logic and C++ network logic. So what you can do is instead, you can have one JavaScript-based networking logic running inside a web view, and you have your C++ app calling this JavaScript layer whenever you want to do a movement. So now you've combined the JavaScript updates and the C++ updates into one layer. And if you did this all the way, you get into this kind of hybrid architecture where you have your JavaScript app, then you have your JavaScript layer. So inside a web launch, a web package, you'd be using WebGL to handle the rendering. Inside your C++ iOS package, you'll have a JavaScript proxy which converts WebGL calls into messages for the C++ application to pick up and convert into OpenGL calls or direct 3D calls, depending on your layer. Regarding performance, when making games and probably other things, we're always GPU bound, which means is you're trying to do more graphics than actual updates. The only time when it gets CPU side intensive is when you're trying to do complicated physics, which doesn't really happen inside mobile games, let alone applications. So on an iPhone 4, when it's purely native, the CPU is running at 6 milliseconds, and the GPU is running about 80 milliseconds. To get 60 frames a second, you want to be targeting 60 milliseconds. When we switched over to this hybrid architecture, where it's just JavaScript handling the entire logic, the entire processing, the CPU dropped down to 11 milliseconds, and the GPU was still bound. So we didn't actually lose frame rate for switching up to JavaScript, but we gained the power to rewrite code on the fly. And that's the power of high-level languages such as JavaScript. Now, if you want to do this yourself, you have to write your own file APIs. For example, IndexedDB doesn't work on iOS, so if you want to save stuff to the SD card, you can't do that. Audio APIs, Android only supports playing back of one audio file in a web view. So does Windows Phone 8. And iOS is happy with that. You need to handle your own download APIs. You can't download from external websites using a web view on Android. And you need to have your own renderer because WebGL still isn't supported on Android. And of course, other stuff. If you want to do your own physics layer, it's always best to write that stuff in C++. So this stuff's open source now. It's multiplay.io if you want to have a play with it. I'm going to show you one cool thing if we have time. What time is it?
12 or 12 minutes.
Ah, perfect. Okay, this is one cool thing, and this is just jumping into the actual source code of the engine. I'm going to go into a file called JS Manager, and I'm going to go into this function here called sync.js. And sorry for the source code blur, but the thing is you have to be careful of whenever you're trying to do rewritable JavaScript on the fly is, you can both write new code and remove old code. But when you're dealing with an interpreter, he only knows how to accept new code. So if I have a class and I override one of these functions, if I then go ahead and delete that function, the JavaScript interpreter doesn't know about the old function anymore. So what you have to do is, and what's implemented in this function, sync.js files, is whenever a new bit of JavaScript comes along, it goes through its prototype functions, and if it finds that one has actually been deleted, it will go to its parent class, grab the line of code from that function, and interpret that. So if you want to be going into this world of handling all yourself, be careful of that. But once you do that, you can do anything. You can do, undo, and real-time updates. I'm going to stop right now because you guys are so awesome and good-looking. Thank you very much for your time.
Do you want to announce your Twitter handle just in case people want to tweet you? I have it, but I can't. Oh, it's Ash Cairo.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I post lots of crap on there.
That's all right.
I got this hashtag called Startup Life at the moment. What I do is I go to all the beaches and I put my laptop there as if I've been programming. I take a picture. Oh yeah, and for this project, the Twitter handle would be multiplay.io. But yeah, you can follow Ash Cairo. I'm weird. It's cool. Whatever. SF. What's up?
Any questions?
We got a question.
We'll fight. Battle to the death.
Go ahead. All right. So this is interesting, but I'm trying to think like what are the use cases of this? Like, end users are not gonna edit JavaScript code, right? Or people play games, and like developers like to build on their local environment. So who are you targeting?
I'll tell you something. So I'm a games developer. If I want to release a game, it takes 10,000 to 100,000 different iterations until I'm happy with that game, until I invite playtesters to playtest that game. And then they playtest it and they tell me bits and bobs and I change it. So now I've changed it and I'm happy with it. I publish it to the store. I wait for the reviews to come in and then I change it again, publish it again to the store and pick it up. Now, Google does something amazing whenever they launch a new feature. They test it in real time on live users. They funnel 10,000 users to see that button red. They funnel 10,000 users to see that button green. They funnel 10,000 users to see that button purple. And whichever one gets the most clicks, that's the button and that's the color that they go with. Imagine if you can do that with your applications and games. Imagine if when you release a game, you have lots of different slight iterations on that Sword of Doom that everyone you want to buy. Now, imagine if you can see that the monetization rate of that Sword of Doom works best when it is purple or has a mask on it. You can then, in real time, make that Sword of Doom the sword that they see in the game. Even better than that, depending on their demographic, you can apply that in-app purchase to fit their need. There's some really, really insane concepts that you can apply with, not only in the business world, such as what Google is doing right now with the web, which isn't possible on mobile devices. But you can also apply that to the games industry as well.
Well, but what is you have the multiplayer thing that you were showing, right? What is that from the picture?
I'll tell you where it comes in the picture. Imagine you're now on an iPad. Now imagine you want to use the iPad to actually do something good other than browsing Facebook. Imagine if you wanted to publish a game on Android on your iPad. With this, because all the logic is in JavaScript, and because it's interfaceable on any device, I can use a Firefox OS device, tweak some maps, hit publish, that game is now published on an Android, iOS, or Windows phone.
I don't like to do that.
I know you don't like to.
editors.
Huh?
I don't use web editors.
Okay, you don't, but if you could use an iPad to tweak stuff, maybe you wouldn't be the user for that, but maybe a kid that just wants to play around with game development, maybe he can, even better than that. Just say you don't know coding. Yeah? I don't know how to code. I don't know how to code. Because you can actually, in real time, write code on the fly. The crazy thing about that scenario is, I can break it as much as I like, and as soon as I get it to work correctly, on my phone I see it actually running. Now, maybe in the package of actually writing source code, that's challenging, but if it was blocks where you drag and drop, then...
It's kind of for learning purposes.
Well, we've open sourced the tech because we believe like real-time updates on we want to liberate these platforms. We're using it to make a super easy-to-use game maker for maybe iOS tablets, Android.
That's using HTML technology, just nothing new with that. You know, you can use web to push updates anytime.
Okay, can you publish a 3D multiplayer game using web technology on iOS?
If you just have a mobile web app, yeah.
Oh, can that mobile web app support 3D? The answer, my friend, is no, because WebGL is disabled on iOS and it's also disabled on Android. And it's also slow.
You've been jailbreaking too long. It doesn't work in Android either.
Okay, so even when you jailbreak it, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work on hardly anything. Yeah, I would never make a WebGL game today.
With this solution, you can make a WebGL game and it will run fast on your Android phone.
That's what I'm saying. That's the value.
You're supporting me. That's why we didn't attack you. Let's go.
I'm trying to help you out.
No, but it's cool. Just thinking different. We have lots of different ideas.
What are you doing underneath? You're just translating to OpenGL?
So that's the cool thing is, in your JavaScript proxy, you pick up the WebGL command, you write it out as a line. The C++ picks it up in its update connection loop. It says, hey, you want to do a GL clear in WebGL? Do a GL clear in OpenGL. You want to do a GL clear in OpenGL? You then translate that to the
So
directory.
you're translating.
You just have some special functions which
Okay.
then
I
line.
was wondering who was going to do a translator, from WebGL to OpenGL.
There is a company, Ludai. They do that shell for you, so you can just plug in your WebGL app and it will run on other platforms. That's probably the only, there's one more company as well that does it as well. But it's still new, it's still beta, it's still challenging
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah, they're gonna come talk to us.
They're cool, I met their ex-president. Okay, we're almost out of time. I'd probably say we're out of time, but if we have one more
if you
question.
guys have more questions, like, we can go, I mean.
If someone wants to hug me as well, honestly. Okay, we got two, and then that's it. Sorry guys. I'm scared. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Your IndexedDB command is it's a file system that commands on so you can write out the SD card as well. And it also has synchronization calls. So if you want to save, it's kind of like what Apple does for iPhone.
Have you guys thought about committing to hacks? Are like or hacks hacks?
I don't know what it is. I heard of that, but the thing is, if you want to use a middleware or language solution, the benefits of what we're doing here is the real-time update, so I can actually rewrite the code on the fly and distribute it. Okay, last question, people again, Barry.
American Edge diary is what you ran in Boston. I have it.
Will you marry me? Last one.
So it allows you to like make universal that you have to define things but is there anything that would stop you from like putting this in like a native UI for iOS or Android, like statements that if there was some unifying language that described UI across the devices, you know, that's
Other companies are doing this kind of solution where you write your code once inside HTML. I forget the name of the company. But PhoneGap has a similar solution. There's another one as well where if you write JavaScript, it will call the iOS. Accelerate KU as well. Our focus was there's a market being penetrated in that area. Unity, I love it for game development. We're trying to just see what we can do with this. Because you know Flash, I know it's hated, but it was awesome until mobile phones came along. You could do website intros, you could do rock band intros, you could do adverts. But it died when it went to mobiles. But so we want to do the creativity that Flash enabled normal people, not super geniuses like you guys, this guy.
Sometimes that's the same, but I found you also, when you request the language blockchain in your JavaScript.
Accelerator.
Yeah, Accelerator Drive. They all do similar programs. But the only thing that we have in there is we give you multiplayer for free. And this game is open source as well, so you can have that as well. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone honestly wants to hug, you know, I'm fine.